Welcome back to the Crypto channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and right now, Bitcoin is getting closer towards a possible breakout here in the immediate short term, while the US stock market is pushing towards all-time record highs, which can potentially help with some sort of breakout here in the short term for Bitcoin and crypto. But of course, over the last one day, we did see a slight little liquidity grab over the last one day towards the upside to wipe out this short-term liquidity. But now that that's happened, we have new levels to watch out for in the Bitcoin liquidation heat map, which I'll talk about in just a moment, alongside Ethereum, which is now testing a crucial area on the price chart that we need to pay attention to, while the price of XRP is now establishing a massive area of support on the price chart. So I'll be talking about all of that and more later in the video, so definitely watch to the end. First of all, just before taking a look at the Bitcoin and crypto charts today, taking a quick look at the US stock market today. This is the S&P 500 index on the 1 hour time frame, and we can see that right now the US stock market is indeed continuing the short-term recovery and now actually pushing towards a potential all-time high breakout. This is the all-time high right around here, and we can see that for the most part the stock market has pretty much entirely recovered out of that previous short-term pullback. So of course, while this is happening in the US stock market, this can help Bitcoin and crypto have a little bit of a relief or a bit of a recovery potentially in the shorter term. Now, of course, it's not a perfect one-to-one correlation. So just because the US stock market's hitting an all-time high or getting close towards all-time highs, it doesn't mean that Bitcoin and all of the crypto market is about to hit new all-time highs right now. So keep that in mind. But yes, this can help Bitcoin and crypto at least a little bit here in the short term have a bit more of a potentially slight bullish relief. And so with that being said, keep that in mind throughout the video. And if we're taking a look at the Bitcoin charts today here on the weekly time frame, not a lot has changed over the last one day on these larger time frames. So the super trend indicator still sitting in the red, and we still technically have this massive bearish divergence to watch out for on the weekly Bitcoin price chart. But just over the last one day, of course, we've seen a weekly candle close confirm, and we've now officially confirmed this oversold signal in place in the weekly Bitcoin RSI. And the last time that this oversold signal officially confirmed on the weekly time frame for the price of Bitcoin was many years ago, back in the middle of 2022, basically near the lows of the previous massive bear market. Now, it's worth obviously mentioning that that wasn't the bottom. We actually still had one more major drop still to go before we ultimately hit the bottom and ended the larger bearish trend. So keep that in mind. This is not necessarily a bottom signal, but it does mean that we've gone quite a decent distance along the way towards the downside very quickly, and we now need some time, at least in the short term for the coming days or possibly weeks, to reset a little bit and have a bit of a relief. And so once again, not a lot has changed over the last one day on the weekly time frame. We're still technically within this larger bearish market, but of course in the shorter term, like I've been saying over the last few days already, yes, we're likely going to see a bit more of a relief, and that's especially due to the fact that of course we're playing out this oversold signal already here on the 3-day Bitcoin RSI, hitting well into oversold, as I've already been saying over the last few days, since basically that flash crash happened right there. We hit well into oversold, which means we're most likely going to see either a bit of a bounce, a bit of a bullish relief, or maybe just a bit of a sideways consolidation. So basically a breakaway relief from all of the bearish price action is quite likely in the shorter term, talking about the next few days or possibly weeks. And obviously already it's been a few days of this perfectly playing out. And as for support and resistance, these levels have not changed over the last one day. So of course, I'd still expect a lot of support at 60,000 based on this local low, and also that being a psychological level, just a big round number, $60,000 as support, and also more support in between 53,000 to 56,000 if the price actually gets back down there. And as for resistance, watch out for in between 72,000 to 76,000 as a significant area on the price chart, likely acting as strong resistance. And obviously already over the last few days, we have been finding resistance, seeing a lot of struggle around that area on the price chart, especially at give or take 72,000. And if we're zooming into the shorter term, taking a look at the 2-hour Bitcoin price chart, we can see that right now we're still currently forming relatively horizontal resistance, relatively horizontal highs here in the short term, while still currently forming slightly higher lows, which is indeed bullish price structure. Once again, just in the short term, this is not a long-term signal or anything like that, but if we're talking about the next few days or the next 1 week or so, if we see a breakout above this line of resistance, which is sitting at around 71.7k, but ideally breaking out above around 72,000, in that situation, that would be a short-term bullish signal pointing towards new price targets towards the upside. And like I mentioned in my last video, the immediate target I'll be watching would be at just under 75,000, around 74,500, give or take. And above that, we could potentially move towards around 78.5 to 79,000 if, once again, we first break out above these first levels that we need to pay attention to, especially this level right here at around 71.7k, which is the immediate resistance here in the short term. And so obviously that is a potential trading opportunity. As always, not financial advice, but if we first actually confirm a breakout with a candle close above that level, rather than just a candle wick towards the upside, but actually confirming a candle close above that level and then holding above that level, holding it as support, not seeing a break back to the downside, in that situation, that would be a signal potentially, once again, not financial advice, but that would be an example of a potential opportunity for a long position to have a breakout trading opportunity towards these next price targets as the potential take profit points for a trade in that example. Once again, not financial advice, just sharing an example of a potential trading opportunity here that I'd personally be looking at doing myself. But remember, we've not yet confirmed the breakout above this line, which means still expect resistance along this line for the time being. And remember, if we confirm the breakout and then see a break back to the downside below that line, then that invalidates the breakout, therefore invalidates any price targets towards the upside. And obviously that will be a shorter term bearish signal if we fail to hold above that line. And obviously just over the last one day, in fact, pretty much right after I posted my last video, we did actually see a slight little move towards the upside, a candle wick towards the upside, slightly above this level of resistance, not confirming any breakout, not confirming any candle close towards the upside. And that slight little short-term bullish move was potentially just a liquidity grab, which is exactly what I talked about in my last video, looking at the Bitcoin liquidation heat map. Obviously, I shared that we had liquidity at around 72,000 to 72.1k, give or take. And that is exactly where the price went to. We went to basically just above that level, just above 72.1k, to simply wipe out that liquidity, which is what I talked about in my last video. And then after we did that, obviously, we just went back towards the downside and continued to find resistance along this line. So once again, we've not yet confirmed any breakout. We're still finding resistance here, and that little move was just simply a liquidity grab. And so as I always say, the price of Bitcoin usually, as always, no guarantees, but the price usually moves towards where we have a lot of liquidity to wipe out these levels of liquidity, especially if those levels are close to the current price of Bitcoin. And right now we have a small amount of liquidity building at around 72,500. We also have a small amount building at around 74.2k, a small amount building at around 77.1k, and a decent amount of liquidity building at around 79.6k. And so obviously, for the most part, we have a lot of liquidity building above the price and really not a lot of liquidity below the price, as we can see, which overall, along with this bullish price structure of horizontal highs and higher lows, is pointing towards most likely a little bit more of a relief coming within the next few days or weeks, especially if the US stock market continues performing like this and pushing towards all-time highs. And so those are my shorter term expectations and the key signals and levels to watch out for in the shorter term. And once again, the bigger picture not really changing all that much over the last one day. So overall, those are my predictions and potential trading opportunities for Bitcoin. And remember, if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of any crypto, you need to be set up ready to go on a crypto exchange. And if you use the first link below this video in the description and in the pinned comment, the first link below this video will take you to this page right here over on the BTNX crypto exchange, which is an exchange that I use myself personally, and is also a no KYC exchange. And as you can see on this page, there's currently an exclusive prize pool of up to 50,000 USDT in prizes just by simply trading crypto using that first link below the video to BTNX. So obviously, if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, you might as well check this out and take advantage of this using that first link below the video. And remember, BTNX is also a no KYC exchange. But if you want another option out there, another exchange that I personally use myself, then in that situation, check out the second link below the video in the description and in the pinned comment, because the second link below the video will take you to this page right here over on the 2 2bit crypto exchange, which once again is also an exchange that I personally use myself, and by the way is also a no KYC exchange. And just by simply trading crypto using that second link below the video to 2bit, there's also an 800,000 USD prize pool right here over on 2bit for a limited time for the next 2 to 3 weeks, as we can see. So once again, if you're going to be trading crypto anyway, you might as well check this out and take advantage of this using that second link below the video. And remember, 2bit is also a no KYC exchange. But with that being said, taking a quick look at the Bitcoin dominance chart on the daily time frame, and I'll keep this quick because not a lot has changed over the last one day. For the most part, obviously we could see short-term bullish, short-term bearish moves, but for the most part, the Bitcoin dominance is still basically just chopping around sideways on the price chart. In terms of the trend and the momentum, we're still looking relatively neutral, as we could see, and as we've seen over the last couple of months actually, which means a lot of the major altcoins out there on average will likely perform very similar to whatever Bitcoin is doing. So that's still the case for the Bitcoin dominance. And if we're taking a look at Ethereum on the 3-day time frame, right now the price of ETH is getting extremely close to testing a major area of resistance based on previous significant support, flipping into new resistance starting at roughly 2.2k. And obviously we're also still playing out this oversold signal in the 3-day Ethereum RSI, helping to cause this slight little bounce in the short term, this short-term bullish relief, which once again is not necessarily a bottom signal. It's possible we can go lower later on, so keep that in mind. But just in the short term for the coming days or possibly weeks, yes, we're likely going to continue to play this out for a little longer here, playing out either a little bit more of a bullish relief or maybe just a bit of choppy sideways price action, especially as we start to run into this resistance where the price could begin to struggle at. And as for support, we have a lot of support all the way down here based on these lows at around 1.5k to 1.6k. But before that area, looking at the daily time frame, we have this massive Fibonacci level of support acting as perfect support based on this local low here, and that's sitting at around 1.8k. So continue to expect a lot of support at around 1,800. And as for resistance, once again, we're now testing this previous golden pocket area of support, now flipping into new resistance sitting in between 2150 to 2250. So really give or take 2.2k, but actually starting at around 2150, just under 2.2k, we have a lot of resistance around there to watch out for, where the price would likely start to struggle at and possibly even see some slight little rejections from. And so just keep that in mind in the coming days as we're testing this resistance. Don't be surprised if we slow down the bounce a little bit in the coming days. But remember, as I just said, we're playing out the oversold signal, which means don't necessarily expect a continuation of this massive crash just in the next few days, which means basically as the price is testing this resistance, yes, we could struggle a little bit, but still potentially hang around the resistance, maybe play out some choppy sideways price action, maybe proceed a little further into that range of resistance and then see a little bit more struggle. So ultimately, that is my prediction here in the short term for the price of ETH, basically following somewhat similar price action to whatever Bitcoin is doing. And if we're taking a look at XRP on the weekly time frame, technically speaking, this massive longer term bearish divergence is still playing out on the weekly XRP price chart. We've not yet confirmed any invalidation signal to actually invalidate the larger bearish divergence. But with that being said, of course, it is worth mentioning that we saw a major bounce from this retracement level at around $1.13 to $1.12. And we're also now holding above this previous golden pocket here, sitting in between around $1.30 to $1.40. So that is the current support to pay attention to, which right now, obviously, we are indeed establishing that area as a major area of support. Once again, in between $1.30 to $1.40. And as I've been saying throughout the video and many videos recently here on the channel, obviously XRP will likely follow very similar price action to whatever Bitcoin is doing, which means if Bitcoin is basically playing out price action like this, expect something similar for XRP, which means it's quite likely that we've put in at least a local low for the time being, not necessarily the bottom forever, but for the next maybe couple of weeks, this will likely hold as the low for now, at least just in the short term once again. And as for resistance, if we see a little bit more of a short-term bullish relief, expect a lot of resistance at around $1.60. And of course, if we're taking a look at the 3-day XRP RSI, the 3-day XRP price action, we can see that right now, obviously, we're playing out an oversold signal for the first time time since July 2024. And once again, as I've said many times over the last few days here on the channel, the last time this oversold signal confirmed on the 3-day time frame, we did indeed see a bit more of a bullish bounce, a bit of a relief in the short term as a very likely scenario. Remember, it is possible to see these little bullish reliefs here and there along the way towards the downside during the larger bearish trend. So keep in mind, we've not necessarily confirmed the end of the larger bearish trend. So we're still not entirely in the clear yet if we're talking about the larger timeframes, the next multiple months, for example. But just in the short term for the next few days or possibly weeks, yes, we're likely going to see a bit more of a bullish relief here, or maybe at worst, just a bit of a sideways consolidation in the shorter term. And if we're taking a look at the price of Solana on the 3-day time frame, it's a somewhat similar situation for Solana, obviously playing out an oversold signal, just like a lot of crypto right now, obviously helping to cause a bit of a bounce and a bullish relief in the short term. Also bouncing from this major area of support here, still sitting in between $75 to $80. So we're potentially now on our way towards testing this massive area of resistance, sitting in between $95 to $105. And so basically, at least in the shorter term, we're kind of in a bit of a sideways price range, bouncing between this support and this resistance. So obviously, as we continue a little bit more of a relief approaching this resistance, start to expect the price to struggle a little bit, possibly see rejections from that area right there, around that area, which means, yes, it's likely we could form a bit of a sideways price range, maybe for the next couple of weeks for the price of Solana. And obviously, in terms of the larger multi-month trend, we've not yet confirmed any reversal or any end to the larger bearish trend, at least not as of right now. And if we're taking a look at Chainlink on the 3-day time frame, it's basically the same story here. Obviously, we're bouncing from massive support at around $8, give or take, on the low end of this area of support, in between $8 to $8.50. We're also playing out an oversold signal in the 3-day Chainlink RSI, telling us that yes, even in the short term, despite the fact that we've not yet confirmed an end of this larger bearish trend, in the short term, yes, we're likely going to see a bit of a bullish relief. Maybe some choppy sideways price action here and there, especially as we approach resistance, but a bit more of a bullish relief is quite likely in the coming days or possibly weeks. And as for the next resistance to watch out for, that's really sitting in between around $9.50 to $10. And remember, when it comes to a lot of these altcoins, really just pay attention to what Bitcoin is doing to figure out what is likely going to happen for a lot of these major altcoins on average. So keep that in mind. And remember, if you want to trade any of these moves in the price of any crypto, check out the links below this video to those exchanges if you want to take advantage of massive bonuses that are only available using those links for certain exchanges. And of course, if you want to actually know how you can trade these sort of moves, no matter what direction the price goes, to profit basically at all times, then make sure to watch these videos popping up right here on your screen, because the video in the top left shows you how you can profit from bullish or bearish price action using long positions or short positions, and the video in the bottom left shows you how you can easily profit from choppy sideways price action. Whilst anyway, that is everything that I have to say for today. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.